afternoon, and good night. This is Mark Ice Jr. This is Become the Podcast. How do you become anything? You dream, you declare, you commit, and success is your next breath. So first things first, I don't know if you can tell, but I got a new microphone. And so the audio is much improved. And so I'm really, really excited that from here on out, every time that you check in with me, you won't take or require as much effort to hear me or listen to me, because the audio will be a lot stronger, a lot more clear, and provide me an opportunity to give you a better product. So that's the first thing. So I just wanted to recognize the fact that I have more technology, better equipment that puts me in position to give you better audio. That's the first thing. The second thing is the actual theme of this podcast. So I give you a background story, and then I get into the thick of things with the content. So I did a post recently where I talked about a family member who was getting probably being very, I don't know, just funny. It was a little bit of a slight, but they were probably being funny. They meant no harm by it. But I had a family member who was making fun of the fact that I'm always producing content and I'm always posting stuff, right? So whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, I'm always posting things. And they were like, man, who gave that man an iPad? That guy's always posting content, right? And it got back to me, and I was a little offended by it. I was probably in my emotions. I was probably, in my ego or whatever. But I was a little taken back by it. And the reason why is because you can expect people who don't know you to kind of come after you that way, right? But when people who do know you, people who are close to the process, people who are family members, when they come after you, it's a little hurtful, and it stings a little bit more, because hopefully they understand the process a little bit better. They've been watching it, they understand it, they've been having conversations with you. They may not talk to you about it all the time. They may not talk to you about the process all the time, but because they are so close to the process, they should just kind of know better. And what I mean by that is, I post so much because I'm not at a place in my career where I'm speaking every single day. I'm not at a place in my career where I'm speaking in front of, hundreds of people or thousands of people 3 to 4 times a week. So how do I develop the courage? How do I develop the stamina? How do I develop the focus to speak on a high level without actually speaking in front of thousands of people, in addition to the effort that comes with it, right? There's nobody calling me. There's not a lot of people calling me saying, I need you to speak about this with this time frame in front of these people. That doesn't happen to me every single week. So I have to figure out, how do I add that pressure onto myself? How do I exercise my gift? How do I exercise my ability to speak? How do I put pressure on myself to speak clearly, to provide content in a very concise form? How do I challenge myself as a speaker? So I use social media to do so. So if I go on Instagram, I know I got to get my content out in 60 seconds. So everything has to become an elevator speech. So a concept that is very robust has to become an elevator speech. I got to get it out in 60 seconds. That's tough, right? But I do so consistently to work on my ability to make my concepts robust if needed, and also very concise if needed. I go on Facebook Live because it's live, right? And so whatever you're doing, people are going to see it. Or whatever I'm doing, people are going to see it. And there is no turning back. Now, I could always not post it, but I post it because for me, it's added pressure. If I'm going to mess up, I'm going to mess up. If I'm going to fix it, I got to fix it on the spot, right? If I want to provide a concept, I got to prepare, and then I got to execute, and I'm giving myself basically one chance to knock this thing out the park. And from there, I look at the comments and I look at the likes, and I just get a feel for what was that. How does that content measure up to, my last post? Was it strong? Was it a lot of likes, a few likes? Did I get enough views? So on and so forth. So there's some measurables to kind of give me a feel for, if that was a good piece of work. So instead of me doing an actual event and handing out a questionnaire at the end or a survey to kind of get a feel for how good my work was, I use social media to put content out and then get feedback through likes and views and things of that nature. And so that is the way that I compensate for the fact that I may not be getting called to speak in front of people every single week. Hundreds of people, thousands of people. That's the way I use social media. So for a family member to understand that or have heard that explanation at least once or twice, and then still come after my work ethic or or what has come about because of my work ethic, I think is unfair, right? And so I went on. I did a post on Facebook Live and kind of explained this story, explained how I processed it, and explained what I did in response to it. And I simply just blocked those family members from my account. So my uncle calls me, and we have this conversation. My Uncle Daryl, shout out to my Uncle Daryl. He gave me a call and said, I want to just give you a different perspective. And one of the things that he said is, it's okay to take advice from different people, right? And he said that person may have been trying to give you some advice in some way, and you were unwilling to take it. And the reason why I was unwilling to accept the advice is because of one of my rules. And one of my main rules that I live by is, if you have not done it or are not doing it, then I can't accept the advice from you. So if you have not done what I want to do, or you are not doing what I want to do, then I have to be very selective about whether or not I want to receive that advice. And I'm smart enough to know that sometimes advice comes from some very unusual places. But as a principle, meaning the principle can be adjusted. A rule is a rule, but a principle can be adjusted. As a principle to live by, I always look at, what are your credentials? What are your credentials? What have you done? What are you doing? And I figure that out before I decide whether or not I want to spend all my time listening to you tell me what I should do. Okay? And my uncle, he's not very fond of that piece of advice. But but in this conversation we had, I was telling him, I don't have time to listen to people who don't have credentials tell me what I should and should not do. Because I feel like I need to use as much of my time as possible to master my craft. I need as much of my time as possible to figure out what's going on in the inside. How do I feel? How am I feeling? How am I doing? How are experiences impacting me? How am I impacting experiences? I got to figure out what's going on in the inside, and I have to use that internal inventory to figure out, how to best show up in life, how to best master my craft. I have to use my gut to figure out which avenues do I take, right? Because I believe that the voice of God is the mind of man. The voice of God is the mind of man. Meaning, we were created in God's image. And although the counselor is good, and although the psychiatrist is good, and the preacher is good, and so on and so forth, and friends are good, right? We all possess the ability to lead ourselves. The voice of God is the mind of man. We all have been given a success mechanism. We've been given an internal compass to help direct us in life. And when I say the voice of God is the mind of man, we were all created in God's image. So just like all children, we all get some of God, right? If you believe in God. But we all get some of God. And so as we look to God for guidance, some of the guidance is already in us. We may not have everything. We may not get everything that God has, but some of it is in us. You know, you look at Jesus. I don't remember too many stories where Jesus was seeking the counsel of others. Now, when he was younger, maybe, but I don't think God was seeking the counsel of others. There was even a story in the Bible where Jesus, as a teen, takes off by himself, and his parents come after him, and they're kind of questioning him because they're like, listen, man, you're a young kid. Why did you go off on your own? And in such a way, God was saying, because I know why I'm here. I know who my Father is. I know who my Heavenly Father is. And I know what he has put in me in the purpose that he has given me. So with that being said, no disrespect, earthly mom and dad, but because of how I was created and because of what I have inside me, I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing. It's bigger than, you all. And so because of that level of awareness, he was able to ask and then answer some questions himself. And I believe that we have the same ability. We have the same ability to ask a question and answer it. And sometimes it just takes us a little bit of quiet time, a little bit of peace of mind, some clarity, a little bit of patience, and a little bit of faith. And we can answer some of our own questions. So with that being said, I don't always have time to listen to somebody else's perspective on things, especially if it's not coming from a place of experience or firsthand experience. Okay? And then on top of it, it might be firsthand experience, but it's like, okay, cool. You want to talk to me about speaking, but I've been speaking longer than you. You've been speaking for a short while. I'm talking something obnoxious like you just decided a couple of weeks ago you wanted to start speaking, and now you want to give me advice, and I've been doing this for 10 years. Yeah, no credentials, no significant experiences, any of that. But you have some words for me. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way. But I do recognize that in that moment, that person might have something to say that's a unique perspective that just might be the advice that I need to now make a better decision. Right? So having said all of that, this is one of the reasons why I feel like it's very, very hard for me to listen to people give advice who don't have the background. But almost it's like my responsibility not to listen. So I'll say it again. This is one of the reasons why I feel it is necessary for me to not only listen to people who have credentials, but it's also necessary for me to not listen because in some way it impacts the other person in a positive way. So let me see if I can break this down because it's kind of complicated. When someone gives me advice and they don't have the credentials and I listen, I feel as though I'm giving them a false sense of purpose. When I listen to someone who does not have any credentials, I believe I'm giving them a false sense of confidence, a false sense of purpose, a false sense of value. Because if a person gives advice outside of their lane to 10 people, and let's say 9 of those 10 people listen, that person is going to start to think that they actually know about, they have something, they know, they won't think they're an expert, but they're going to think that they have, I don't want to say this. They're gonna feel like they are proficient in this area, in a certain area of advice giving. And in all actuality, people are just being nice. People are just being patient. People are just being respectful, right? And letting that person talk. But in all actuality, that person knows very little when it comes to this particular subject matter. It's just like, now this is a very good, I won't go there. So what happens is when that person starts to continuously give advice about a subject matter that they know from secondhand experiences, something that they watched on TV, something that they read on Facebook or something like that, and they've not actually done the work. They've not actually been involved. They've not gotten their hands dirty, right? They've not done something, for several years and had multiple experiences on multiple levels and been hit with different levels of adversity, so on and so forth. That person then begins to feel like, yeah, I know a lot about this. And I think what happens is that can distract one from their purpose. Now, on some deeper level, maybe the advice giving, and all depending on, the results of your advice. Maybe you might be discovering your purpose. I talk a lot about how I started speaking, and it started from doing these little 2-minute speeches, these little 1-minute speeches before our games when I coached at Concordia. So in 2010, I started coaching at Concordia, and I would give these speeches before the games, right? So right before they would go out to the floor for the last time to actually play, I would meet the guys right before they hit these double doors that led to the basketball court. And I would think about, all Friday night and all Saturday morning, I would think about a theme based upon who we had to play against and what we had done in practice and what I'd seen on TV. And I would come up with some sort of theme, and I would give these guys a big rah-rah speech. And after that, I would say, greatness lives on the edge of death and all this other things. And it would get the guys riled up, and the guys kind of bought into it, and they wouldn't want to hit that floor until they got with me. It was a really cool thing. But from there, I started realizing something about myself. I started realizing that I had the ability to hold people's attention. I had the ability to connect with people. I had the ability to inspire people. I had the ability to make somebody feel some kind of way. I had the ability to talk to someone in such a way that by the time they were done, they felt differently about themselves. And it was because of that I started to see myself as more than a basketball trainer, but as a person who could enhance the faith of other people. And so here I am giving advice, being a motivational guy, right? Or inspirational guy. But as I started doing it more and more and more, I started getting more opportunities. People started hearing about this. So I got a couple opportunities on campus. And then I started getting some of the people who were connected to our program and our basketball program. They would say, listen, can you come speak for this person? Can you come speak for that person? And I wasn't very good. But over the course of time, I said, there's enough experiences that are coming of this. I feel a certain way about this thing. I've been getting a ton of responses from my players, from the coaching staff, from people outside the coaching staff. There's enough going on that makes me feel like, hey, I might be onto something here. And with that being said, if you're giving advice, but you start looking at the sample size and you start looking at all the people that I affected, all the opportunities that are coming because of the advice that I'm giving, and just kind of the miscellaneous experiences and opportunities that start to take shape, that's okay. Once that happens, you might be on to something. But if you're giving a ton of advice and you're not necessarily benefiting from the advice, and the people around you aren't necessarily benefiting from the advice, and you've not done an incredible amount of research, you've not done an incredible amount of work, you've not had these, you've simply been watching from afar, and you haven't really got your hands dirty, then as far as I'm concerned, you're giving advice and you might just be distracting yourself from your purpose. And when you come to me, I feel as though I need to figure out what your credentials are, because if I allow you to just rap with me and I don't ask you what your credentials are, I ask you where you are experienced and what your credentials are and what gives you the right to rap about, give this advice, I'm not holding you accountable. So I'm not holding you accountable and helping you understand that you have a lane that really increases your knowledge and your instincts. You have a lane that puts you in position to really help people on a high level, not only based upon strict just desire alone to help people, but you put yourself in position to help people because you not only have the knowledge, right? You not only have the knowledge through tons of experiences, through tons and tons of deep rooted experiences, but you also have the instincts. You were born with a feel for when and when not to when it comes to this subject matter. And although you want to give advice because it makes you feel good and it makes you feel valuable, you could probably do more work and better work and help out more people if you figured out what your lane was. So I feel like when you talk to me, I need to help you recognize that. In a roundabout way, I might not just start hitting you over the head with my curriculum or anything like that, but in a roundabout way, as you start talking to me about what I need to do, all right, cool. What have you done? And it's a quick comment. It's a quick revelation that happens. What have you done? And then hopefully that person says, okay, well, either they say, well, I've done X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. I've done all these different things, and this is what I'm telling you. Or they say, well, I really haven't done anything. I was just watching you. I just saw you on TV. And it's like, okay, well, cool, man. That's the problem. You decided to give me some advice on something you know nothing about. But I know that there is something out here that you know a ton about. Give me some advice on that. There's times when people want my advice. And I'm quick to say, nah, that's not my lane. So now, here's the thing. I'm not wasting their time. I'm not wasting their time with me coming up with some BS advice. I'm not wasting my time thinking about the BS advice to give you. Now, once I realized that this ain't my lane, now I can go over and keep doing what I was born to do, and wait for that moment where that person comes in my space and asks for my advice that actually connects to what I'm good at. So not only is it just about, well, I don't take advice from people who don't have any credentials, but I also feel like there's a responsibility for us to then hold that person accountable and say, listen, man, if you don't have any credentials, then we can't talk. We can't talk because we're going to waste each other's time. I'm getting advice from somebody who's never done anything that I'm involved in, one, but two, if I listen to you long enough, if enough people listen to this person long enough, eventually that person is going to develop a sense of value in the wrong capacity. And miss out on the experiences and the knowledge and the opportunity to invest in themselves or invest in their purpose, so that they can hopefully one day become knowledgeable, become an expert in the area in which they were designed to do so in the first place. And once that person develops that skill set and that knowledge base and so on and so forth, then that person will now be a huge benefit to a certain segment of people. Because this person has the knowledge, they have the experience, they have the instincts, they have the purpose. These people need they need that guidance, and it just so happens that this person this person's living a purpose-driven life. This person over here is living the same purpose-driven life, and because of this person's experiences, this other person over here now can be guided properly and fulfilled and advised and led and taught, and it makes sense. It makes sense now. And if we will all stay in our lane, we can help more people by staying in our lane than constantly jumping from lane to lane trying to help other people. Like, I hate administrative stuff, but there's somebody who's really good at administrative stuff, so that person's going to be able to help me. Right? So here I am, I'm doing the inspirational speaking stuff, and I hate the administrative stuff, but somebody's really good at the administrative stuff. So that person's purpose helps me. And then there's another person who's really good at the finance stuff. So that person can help me because I don't want to deal with the finances and do all the books and the taxes and the all of the documenting all the money we spend versus on the business versus not on the business. So that person helps me out, right? And then there's somebody who's really good at home repair. So that person helps the financial person, because the financial person has spent all his life learning about numbers. Didn't spend his whole life worrying about how to fix things. So that's where the person who understands home repair, he helps the accountant, right? And then that person who does the home repair, they've spent all their life learning how to fix things, but they never understood the administrative side of things. So now the person who understands the administrative side of things and how to run a business, now that administrative person is connected with the person who learned how to fix houses. But guess what? The person in administration never really knew how to believe in themselves, one way or the other, right? They never knew how to believe in themselves. They never knew that this was their purpose. They always knew they liked to organize things and keep things in some sort of order and whatnot, but they never knew that this was their genius level talent, and they didn't believe in it. And that's when they meet me. And I help that person understand, like, listen, your genius level talent doesn't have to be singing, dancing, jumping, running. No, it could be organizing. And that person meets me, and I help them develop the faith in their ability, in their genius level talent. And all of a sudden, here are all these people in their own lane helping other people. But if the finance person was trying to do the administrative work and fix the house, they may be distracting themselves from their genius level talent. If I spent all my life working on how to fix things and spend all my time working on the administrative stuff, I might be distracting myself from my genius level talent, which is to enhance the faith of others. And there we see how when we are in our lane, we can help more people and impact more people. We can show up more confident because we're actually operating in our lane. Now, I'm not only smart in this, but I'm also instinctive. Because when we operate within our genius provides us a more vast capacity for knowledge and instinct. Why would you veer outside of your lane to help somebody where your knowledge is limited? Now, understand something. You can give advice to people about this restaurant is really good. You should go check it out. If you go to Whole Foods and your whatever you bought isn't good, you can take that back. I'm giving you the advice. Take that back. Tell them this. Either refund your money or or you can get another thing of what you bought that this happens to be not good. We can give that advice, but I'm talking about the people who every time you talk to them about what you're going through, and immediately they want to give you some advice instead of just listening sometimes and just empathizing and just trying to find a way to connect. I don't need your advice, just connect with me. That is when I feel like if you don't hold people accountable and ask them what their credentials are, you may allow them to remain distracted, and they may miss out on their genius level talent. They may miss out on their passion, and they may miss out on their purpose. So that's it. I hope that makes sense. So let's wrap this thing up. Greatness lives on the edge of death, and I am not afraid to die. I will fight for my dreams. I will celebrate my dreams, and I will die for my dreams. Thoughts are things, and everything starts off as a thought first, springing from a place of mindfulness and clarity. My name is Mar Fox Jr. We have to learn the value in holding people accountable by helping them to recognize what their passion, what their genius level talent, and what their purpose is. I'm done.